Good evening and welcome to Slam the Gavel, the show that tells it all regarding family court, other court issues, as well as CPS. I am your host, Marianne Petrie. Bradley's mother, Nargis Golan, passed away 4 months ago. Bradley is autistic and needs structured routine and therapies he receives for his autism 6 days a week. However, Italy just entrusted Bradley to Italian social services. If he is ruled to go back to Italy, he will face the next 3 to 4 years in the Italian foster care system, where he can't speak or understand the language. He will be taken away from the only family he has ever known. Please call Governor Hochul, New York State at 518-474-8390 and voice your concerns to please keep Bradley here in these United States. That's 518-474-8390. Hashtag keep Bradley safe. I have a brand new guest on. I have Lisa Goodpaster on. She was alienated from her mother by her stepmother for 40 years. Her story is the most documented case of child alienation in the world. Her ability to connect and help others understand the dangers of not co-parenting and the connection to parental alienation is creating a positive movement forward to help create change while clearing the path for other survivors to come forward. And also, Lisa has written a book, and we're going to talk about that. I welcome you to Slam the Gavel, Lisa. How are you
Thank
doing?
you.
How far are you in this book? I'm dying to read it.
The book is now in publication, not publication, it's in the production stage.
Okay.
So I'm looking at it should be released by hopefully Mother's Day, if not May 2023. So next 6 to 8 weeks.
Oh, congratulations. That's awesome.
And the book is called Alienated When Parents Won't Parent. And
Ooh.
it is written by me, no ghostwriter. uh, is written by me, and it is there is not a book out there like it. It is what every parent that is struggling and suffering through alienation. And what is fascinating about this book is that what was used to brainwash me is actually included in the book. So everyone gets a detailed information on how it actually starts and the whole process of my life through, trying to navigate a world without parents and not even knowing that I was alienated. I knew something was off, and it took 40 years to untangle. But yeah.
And I know of someone else that it took 40 years as well.
Mhm.
I've read that somewhere. I've read that it can take 40 years for the alienated child to, I don't know, process it or realize it.
Oh, I think I was always curious kid, and very angry at my parents' divorce. Disproportionately angry, but that's also part of the alienation.
Mhm.
So when you read the book, you see firsthand exactly the exact verbiage that was used to annihilate my mom. It's like character assassination.
Mhm.
And uh, you know, when you understand, like I'm also a childhood trauma educator as well. So I'm really up to date with how our brains and body works and the different ages that this happens. And the most significant ages are like between 7 and 13. And that's when all like the pruning happens, and our bodies and brain are growing at such a rapid pace. And it is crucial that we see, hear, feel, know our parents. And that's why it's so easy to manipulate and brainwash a child.
Mhm.
So that is very evident when you read the book.
Mhm. I think it's a very insidious process, and you don't know it until it seems like it clicks, but then you look back and it's like,
Yes,
I
it's
should have seen it.
yeah, it definitely is a psychological nightmare. And it's not that I didn't, well, there was no, even throughout my childhood and adulthood, there, nobody knew what this was. So the whole reason why I have wrote this book was so that because I couldn't begin to heal until I knew what the heck happened.
Mhm.
And it takes, I mean, the reason why it took 40 years is, a lot of it is just a lot of kids who grew up alienated, they don't want to go back and revisit that hell,
Right.
right? Because we don't want to do that. But your past will always collide with your present until the past wounds are healed, or we can understand them. So that's crucial. And the way that what's really going on, what really needs to be spread, and I'm probably gonna, I don't want to scare your audience, but I want to be as transparent as possible.
Mhm.
What's going on for the kids now is one thing. It's as they get older, and that's what I really explain, that it doesn't just take our, it can take our physical health. We get really sick, and that's what happened to me. So not only is this child abuse, but this is a hit at such a catastrophic uh, place that it's why there's so many alcoholics and addicts, and why so many people don't make it, because they don't know, or they don't even want to believe that this can happen. And I think that's why my book is so crucial, because it's a mirror. It's like,
Mhm.
here you go. It's real. It's 2023. No more.
Mhm.
Change now.
Right, and it's those ACEs scores that a lot of people don't, understand.
And I take my A score way back when it first came out, because I was always curious, and I was always like mad, like, oh, just because my parents are going to get divorced, I get a mark. I was like, always like fighting
Mhm.
this. Anything that was negative, I had to fight, because that's what was implanted in my head. So it really takes over every aspect of your life
Mhm.
until you figure it out.
Mhm. Mhm.
And then it's still let's see, I'm 7 years. It's been 7 years, and in the 7 years, I'm over 2,000 hours of therapy work, along with writing a book, with going through a
Wow.
divorce myself. Uh, you know, it's, I don't wish this on anyone.
Mm-mm. No,
Yeah.
that's a difficult road, and people don't realize some people don't even realize they're alienating their child either. They're I don't some people maybe are just naive when they're saying things and they shouldn't be. But,
Hey,
judges will look at the parents and say, "No bad-mouthing the other parent." And they are.
right. And they don't explain like why that's important.
Mhm.
you
Right.
know why. And there's always alienation when, especially two high conflict parents are getting a divorce. There's usually always some sort of alienation, and then it usually just dissipates, and then everybody goes to their new lives. And like, I raised my son, there was no alienation. He had a great relationship with his dad. So some parents do it and some parents won't. And um it's a big issue,
Mhm.
massive issue.
I think you brought up a really good point that these judges don't explain why.
Mhm.
And, they
I can
should.
tell
They
you why.
should even if they had a small blurb, because this is what's going to happen to your kids.
Yeah.
Uh,
They don't, yeah, they don't tell you why. They know why. They've known this. Alienation, like I said earlier, has been around forever.
mhm,
I think Einstein even had alienation. Dr. Gabor Mate, he's
mhm,
a real famous, yeah, psychologist. He has been alienated. Uh, I think that the reason, for some reason, people don't want to believe it. Well, too bad. It's time that it's not going to stay quiet so that other people can stay comfortable. It's
right.
it's this is a parenting crisis, and parental alienation happens to kids by their parent or parents. And we're not born with it, yet we are diagnosed, picked apart, told that we don't have critical thinking skills. There's so much that gets even brainwashed into the parents' minds because they're listening to all the court lingo and all the things that are negative, but they don't even tell you why. Here's the thing, the judges and any psychologist that is working, that has their degree, should know this. The reason why a judge should want a child to have a relationship with both parents
Mhm.
is the attachment. That is our foundation to who we are. Our As kids, we are born with the innate need to survive, and we need our parents. That starts in the womb. That
Mhm.
starts with hearing our dad's voice, our mom's voice. We don't know this as kids. Like, come talk to me when I was, go back to when I was like in the third, fourth grade, I would have looked like, what?
Mhm.
Because it takes a long time. You almost have to grow up, raise your child to kind of understand. But the attachment to our parents is not negotiable, period. And the idea that a judge has the right to sit up in his high, and I get it, the courts are designed that way so the judge looks more superior up on his place with his gavel. He has no right to say who gets to be in my life and who doesn't. If one of my parents is ill, what's the difference with them having cancer than being mentally ill? That is not okay. And
Mhm.
that's the parent in me and the child that is still in me that has learned how to navigate this really uncomfortable hit, that
Mhm.
it's a direct hit. And to see how not having a safe, secure attachment is with your parents, just look at the world.
Mhm.
You see it everywhere. Look at the dating sites. Look at everybody complaining about. I mean, you want to talk about people that have attachment issues? They go from one parent to the next. This is why I also have a big issue with step parents being, not all of them, some of them are good, but no kids want four parents. No kids want four parents.
Mhm.
We can make space for them, but there's so many things that they're doing on purpose, or maybe some just don't realize it. But no, uh, in my book, there's a psychologist that is from Harvard. I specifically picked her because she is awesome, but she even says every therapist knows what an attachment system can do. So the idea that you have professionals on the stand and, you know, wanting that child to just be with one parent, I have concerns about that.
Mhm.
Wouldn't you?
Yeah. Um, it seems there's a lot of corruption as well in these courtrooms because a parent will come in and right away somebody becomes a target. I don't know how this well, I know how this works because the opposing attorney is usually BFFs with the judge or has paid off the judge in some way, like through campaign money or whatever. So they'll call out that parent's mentally ill and they're alienating the kids from from this parent. And the judge runs with it. And it's out of control. And other people will say, well, you know, they're they're, uh, they're using parental alienation when another parent claims domestic violence, and therefore parental alienation doesn't exist, or they're twisting it, and then they're bringing in Gardner and going through all his issues
You
when
know, yeah. Here,
I'm sorry.
no, I'm laughing. I hear you. I see it too. I see it in the groups, and I've seen the same thing for 2 years now. Yes, I've heard of that. And that guy Gardner's dead, right?
Yeah, he's dead, and actually,
He's dead.
I was on a thread on TikTok where some woman said, "They should fire Dr. Gardner."
Oh
Almost
no.
died laughing. He's dead as of what, since 1985?
Yeah, like, you know, uh, oh geez, like, I don't care what you call it. I don't it I don't know who invented the alienation or who's the designer of all these fancy titles, but at the end of the day, that is taking time away from the kids. If you are so adamant about, I don't like that word because that person said that one. Well, you're probably the same person that doesn't like cheese or doesn't like, coffee,
Mhm.
or maybe laughing and having a great time. Who knows? But the way that I look at it from growing up in all this division and chaos and seeing how I see the parents being played as puppets. That's what I see. I see the
Mhm.
parents being played by puppets by everyone.
Mhm.
And, that's parents, their only choice when you're in family court is to fight with an attorney. And, there's, this is, this is bigger than just one person. This is affects everybody.
Mhm.
Everybody paying taxes, right? We've got parents that don't even know about this because they're not alienated. They're living their life, but yet they're paying taxes for a corrupt system that they know nothing about. And
Right.
so when you have people that are fighting over words and who said this and who said that, well, then you get people that vote and they want a say in like where their taxes go. They would want to know, but they hear this type of rhetoric back and forth. It makes zero sense. It sounds like a bunch of teenagers, and people just turn away. So it's one of the biggest reasons why I titled my book When Parents Won't Parent,
Mhm.
because they won't listen to the parents, but maybe they'll listen to the kids.
Mhm.
Because, it's like not too many kids want to come up and say, yeah, I was brainwashed. Well, when you have the proof, there should be no shame about that. There should
Mhm.
be no shame about surviving this type of abuse. And the idea that there's so much division when you have the father's rights, the mother's rights, step parents think they have rights. Step
Mhm.
parents do not have rights. They have the right to love their new spouse. And I will say that I love both of my son's step parents. They were awesome, but I parented, and so did my son's dad.
Mhm.
We did it together. They just stood back, and he's got a great relationship with his step parents. That's how it should be.
Mhm. Mhm.
But all of this other stuff, and it's causing so much issues.
Mhm.
I can't tell you how many times I wanted to walk away, and it was because of the kids, because of the parents. Some of them aren't very nice. Some of them are bad.
Mhm.
I've been, I mean, I have, they try to intimidate me, but it doesn't work. Not when you were raised by a psychopath, because basically that's what happened to me.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Alienators are sick.
They
And
definitely are. I have seen it in action as
mhm,
well, even being allowed in a courtroom. The unbelievable,
the whole thing, yeah,
the whole
it's,
yes.
it is bad.
Mhm.
It's very bad. So, yeah, it also turns the kids away because then they look at it like, okay, this isn't much different than what's going on at school. You got bullies online, trolls, whatever you want to call it. You've got, I can tell who the parents that are alienating themselves that don't want to believe that they have to believe that it's alienation. And it's like, no, really, about half of the kids are actually alienated. The rest aren't. They actually don't want anything to do with their parent, and it has to do with their parents' divorce.
Mhm.
And when you have two parents that are completely different, that, one parent's really strict, the other one isn't. And when you're going through all kinds of emotions, you're going to want to stay with that parent that isn't strict. Because it feels like love when you're more accepted. But
Mhm.
that kid doesn't know that, having stability, doing your homework, getting to bed early,
Mhm.
those things matter. Learning how to be responsible, all those things matter.
Mhm.
And you need both your parents.
Yeah, you
Or
do.
in some cases, yeah, there are some parents that are abusive to the point where they don't need to be around their children. That's different. We're
Right.
not addressing that. We're addressing the fact that this is preventable, and
Right.
it is used, monetized by the court system. And I see it, the parents that I look and I'm watching. I'm like, they know that one day their kid isn't going to be 7, right? They know that kid's going to be 15, 20, 30. My son's 30, almost 30. Uh, There's so much parenting and so much that goes on for your kids. And the idea that parents want to spend it in a courtroom, that is no place to raise a kid. The minute the kids hear that they have to go to court, they're going to check out. It's uncomfortable.
Mhm.
It's unnatural, but we've
Right.
normalized it because it's a business.
Mhm.
Well, family should never be a business.
Mhm. Well, there was a time that, I was supposed to bring my kids into court, and I had
Mhm.
them that weekend, and we all knew that we were doing this on Monday, and we didn't talk about it. I don't wanna talk about it, and then my lawyer called Sunday at 7 p.m., and she said, "Don't bring them because they're calling you litigious." Because I get called a lot of names in court, but anyway, I I went into their rooms, I said, "Hey, you don't have to go to court," and they were so happy. And then
Yeah.
when I got in there and, um, the judge ruled that the father take custody, I said out loud, "I really wish I would have brought my kids in." I just was like, because if
Yeah.
they should have a say. They're saying it was that they wanted 50-50, like we had been doing for close to 10 years until the ex remarried, and she inserted herself in the co-parent relationship and the relationship I had with my kids, and destroyed and obliterated the the relationship I had with my oldest. So,
Mm.
I mean, this is I know there's good
Oh,
step-parents, and I know that like, even my current husband, he's a stepfather, but I told him right from the beginning, I said, "Whatever happens, I will handle it, and if the kids backtalk you, you come to me, and,
mhm.
just say, 'Listen to your mother.' That's all I wanna hear you say is to say, 'Listen to your mother.'" Be
Right. Right. No, that's exactly what I did. I'm like, Greg, give me 10 years. This, I will do the parenting. And then as Matt got older, it was almost like kind of a good thing because sometimes step parents that are really calm, they're not as emotional, like we get emotional, right? Like you did what? Where, more like calm, like it's all right, calm down. And he was a pilot, so there was a certain calmness to it
Right.
anyway. So it everything played out the way it was supposed to play out. But I'm also really grateful because, you know, Greg always had my son's best interest.
Mhm.
And that's really important on those Athena, my dog.
Oh, cute.
Um, yeah, Athena. So yeah, it's very scary that this happens. And it's even what's really bothersome is that a lot of step parents don't understand attachment, and they feel like they have the right to go in and say, no, it's the mother, you must be I get this all the time on TikTok, you're just a bio mom. And I'm like
Ah,
laughing, and I'm like, if they only knew the truth, ladies, like, I'm like, are you kidding? Like, I already lived that life. It was great. I'm doing this to help, but I don't tell them that. I'm just kind of like, they don't get it. They don't understand it because they probably never had a safe attachment. So parents that move on too quickly, it's very, very common. Then the dad gets remarried, and I think the dad probably feels a little bit justified. Haha, they think that they think that the kids care who is better looking,
mhm.
right? It's like the new wife, they get all dressed up, and it's like, you know what? In 10 years from now, that is not that is so insignificant.
Right.
It's all about you. It's all about you, isn't it? It's all about you when they do those things. And the kids notice that,
Mhm.
but it's unfortunate. But what happens is, like in my case, it's I didn't know. My stepmom was very covert. They're very covert.
Oh, yeah.
And they say one thing, they even say one thing to their spouse, but then go online and go on the stepmom groups, go on Reddit. They can't stand it. And it's like, hey, I'm not against step parents. I started the Stephood project thinking that, well, let's turn something bad into something good. And so I came up with the word stephood because I figured I didn't have a childhood, I had a stephood, which was basically really bad. And I think a lot of the step parents get really, they get triggered. And I understand it, but it's like, this isn't about you. Like, if the mom left the child, then that's abandonment. That's
Uh-huh.
different. That's different.
Right,
And
right.
I'm talking about when there is an intact, there's co-parenting going on, and then somebody gets jealous,
Yep.
and to not know this is the biggest mistake
Mhm.
that any parent that's going to get remarried understand. Like, truly, the parent in me just does not understand how you can hurt a child like this.
Mhm,
It's
mhm.
sick. um how they, I can speak on behalf of, like, what my stepmom did, and she didn't do it without my dad's permission, right? Because you can't really alienate a child unless there's some sort of parent permission. My
Mhm.
parents didn't know, but it took them a while. When they found out, oh boy, my mom right away came, she knew. And this is a mom who's very, my mom was considered, she was the stricter one, right?
Ah,
So when you're stricter and you've got, you want your kids to have stability and you want them to, have structure, my stepmom used that as a way to twist it and go, oh, that's so mean, and just whatever they can say.
oh, yeah.
And that is, they should, honestly, if you're going to marry someone that has kids under the age of 13, the court should make them take some sort of classes that they understand attachment system, because uh, if you don't know that, you shouldn't even be a parent. In fact, you should know that before you become a parent.
Mhm. I agree. I know, like, when you get divorced, at least over here, they make you take a class and you get a certificate, and all they do is talk about finances and whatever, just general stuff but they don't talk about this. Shouldn't there be someone saying, "Okay, I'm allotted 20 minutes to talk about attachment. This is what we're gonna talk about when so and so remarries. Be on the lookout for and discuss what, with your co-parent, what your concerns are, and are they aware of attachment." I think there should be
Why
more
don't you think they do? Why don't you think they don't? Why don't they address this? Why? And they've known about this for years. Why?
because they wanna keep the court system well-oiled.
Yes. Bingo. Bingo. Every parent that's listening, follow me so you can understand, like, this is a it's a doozy, because it is exactly what every parent has been trying to tell their kids. And it's exactly what every kid has been trying to tell their parents. So if you have a estranged or alienated kid,
Mhm.
you're gonna want this book. You're gonna want to really uh get to know me and
Yeah.
understand that, like, I'm like the bridge between the this is what I say, I'm like the bridge between the parent and the child. And you won't have to spend millions and trillions of dollars. It's like, it's, if I would have had somebody that had already raised their kids, who grew up to prove what happened, it would have been so much easier for me to accept, because there's so much resistance. And the thing is, not only do the courts fail on the attachment system, but they also take their sweet, can I say ass?
Oh, yeah, you're allowed to swear openly, yeah.
They take their sweet ass time, right? Because we know they make money off of logging those hours. But while they're logging those hours, our brains and bodies are growing rapidly.
Mhm.
And they know this. They know this. They know this. Right? I have the therapists and the doctors that I have worked with personally, they know this. So another thing is, a lot of the psychologists go to school and they're taught one thing. They're
Right.
not taught the other things, which is I'm bringing to the forefront, which is like, no, this is I don't think that kids, I mean, maybe some kids have are more susceptible, are more, I guess, uh, can get, I suppose, a lot of kids get bipolar, or they're diagnosed with borderline personality. No, I just had complex, and I grew up because I had negative love patterns because I rebelled, and I
Mhm.
explain this stuff in my book. Uh, and alienation can be healed and it's been treated. And I went to the one of the places, I think a lot of movie stars still go there, but yeah, this is fixable.
Mhm.
And yet parents are being told that their kids are damaged forever. Well, if you say that, your kids are never going to come back to you,
Mhm.
because that's not damage. The way that childhood trauma works is that it can't be erased and it can't be reversed. So they're wounds, they're wounds, right? They're open wounds. And then once you start healing them, they become scars.
Mhm.
And if we can eliminate the ACEs and bring them down, because the higher your ACE score,
Mhm.
apparently the lower, the lower your death. You're gonna die younger
Right.
because if you have a higher ACE score. So mine's like an 8. It was like an 8.5. I'm like,
Yep.
maybe it's a 9. No, I keep lowering mine, but really realistically, it's all about knowing what happened to you so that you can begin to heal from that.
Mhm.
And your body and brain will, it's neuroplasticity, right? So our brain is constantly growing.
Mhm.
We are not just stuck with 9-year-old brains.
Right.
So there's a lot of good. There's a lot of good to be shared too.
I think, one of the problems is a lot of these psychologists that these parents that pick on the targeted parent, they will pick out the psychologist without letting that we'll say targeted parent know. And that psychologist is only has the PhD in, we'll say, child sexual abuse, not even has a degree in child psychological abuse. It's only in that one area.
Mhm.
And then they get the psychologist to call in false allegations on that other parent. Then
Mhm.
a false narrative is created and implanted in that kid's head, and
Mhm.
then they all run with it. And I think the psychologists are the problem.
Yeah, absolutely. Because number one, they, I mean, especially ones that like charge like so much money, and it's like, what? Like where I went, the doctors that I work with, I mean, I'll never forget it. They're like, Lisa, there's nothing wrong with you. No, no, you just had a really bad childhood and this is all fixable. I'm like, why doesn't everybody know this? They're like, this is why you got to write a book. Like this place was around for like 50 years already. So, and you're talking some of those top psychologists in the world go to this place so that they can understand it from a different level of like being human and knowing the brain and body have to work together. So, uh, these psychologists that, hey, great, you can be really intellectual and really smart. That doesn't mean that you have integrity.
Right. Right.
So, and I know there's some great psychologists, and I tell you, I hope I'm not friends with any bad psychologists, because if I find out they're bad, I'll unfollow them. I'm very much a kid advocate. I am very much a voice of the kids. I always, no matter how uncomfortable it is, I don't ever want to sugarcoat something to a parent. But the truth is, your kids love you. They don't love what's going on, and they can't explain it,
Mhm.
depending on their age.
Mhm.
Uh, but it's I think you see so many people saying that they're experts and they're experts. I'm like, where's the school courses? Because from what I know, they're still trying to study this. And I find it, I've been in this space for 2 years,
Mhm.
and it took me like an extra year to write the book. 'Cause, alienated, it's kind of like, yes, alienate rhymes with procrastinate. because it was hard. It's hard
I
because
can't imagine.
oh my God, even the editor, no ghostwriter. There were times when I could only like write a sentence. And I even called my mom. I'm like, you have to come over here. I don't know. I need help. And they're like, and what's funny is all the negative stuff I hear online and everything, and I have to, try to navigate through and like, oh no, that parent must hate me, but that's not what I meant. Or
Mhm.
what's really interesting is it's pushed me closer to my family, to my
Mhm.
mom. My mom does not engage in the groups. She stays far away, and we're super close now
Mhm.
because she sees it from a different perspective. She's like that, you know it, it's really sad. It's really sad. If I say something about the dads, and the moms get upset. If I say something about the moms, and the dads get upset. So you know what that does to me? That's exactly how I grew up.
Mhm.
And so you cannot be who you are if you're constantly okay, okay.
Mhm.
That's not okay. So it's almost like I have a saying, the only way out of the middle is straight up.
Mhm.
Is so I have to look at it uh, from my perspective, and as well as with the parents. But I'm also grateful that I was in this space for 2 years, because I really got to see how devastating this is for parents.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Yeah, and that's what causes the splitting. And
Mhm.
like, I had noticed that later throughout the whole process that the child would lie to cover things up and make things smooth. With me, however, I was non-demanding. I was, the lax parent. I think that's what they were calling me because I mean, they all had chores on the every other weekend. I was allowed to have them because, I was so dangerous, but these kids wanted to mow the lawn. They were fighting over a lawnmower. Who does that? Okay. But
Yeah.
I didn't have any problem disciplining them because they were essentially well behaved. But if I went
Right.
to ask them, just a regular question, I don't know, like, when is the school play or something, I don't know, whatever, you'd get some weird answer back.
Yeah.
And
So yeah, the splitting. Yeah. I didn't even know, like, because when you grow up, you don't know, like, it's like that's splitting. So yeah, so what happens really for that child internally is, when a kid, and parents, please listen, when a parent is trying to say, hey, what happened at your mom's, or what's going on at your dad's, or when a kid has to feel like they have to protect one parent, guess what happens? That's a
Mhm,
hit. It's a traumatic hit. So when I say trauma, that means that in that moment, that kid has to stop. They're uncomfortable, and they say whatever they need to say because it hurts, it's unnatural, and then they push it down. And when we suppress to survive. And we don't, because you're kids, they don't know. They're not adults yet. They haven't had the life experience. So that moment where that kid has to shut off their own feelings to appease that parent, that's trauma. Because not only that, but then they are having to process that alone. And when you process that alone, that is how the foundation, that is a negative experience. So in my case, right, I was with my alienator from ages 7 to 13. That's sustained trauma.
mm,
That's sustained trauma. Now, how I navigate through all that, and everyone will kind of get to read just how strong I was of a child to try to fight her in my own way. But that was not my fight at all. My parents had an obligation to protect me. My
mhm,
parents, not my stepmom, not my stepdad, both my parents. Both parents, mom and dad, have a dual responsibility, a moral responsibility to put their kids first. So if you're going through a divorce, my advice, I would go with any lawyer that says, I want both parents to walk out of this divorced, but still know that their kids' attachment and foundation will not be messed with, because it is in childhood that you cannot erase. So a lot of times I'll still be in the present with my family, my mom, and I'll go, oh yeah, I felt that. This little trick, because it doesn't go away, but you learn how to manage your own nervous system. I've had a lot of practice, so it,
Mhm.
it is sustainable. You can live beyond your trauma. You can triumph. I'm living proof. It's just a lot of times a lot of parents don't want to see it, because it's like, if they see that, then their fight is, their kid has to be messed up because that X is so bad. And so I look at, like, no, where are the parents that want the best for their kids?
Mhm.
Because I've been in domestic violence situations too. There, everything that could happen happened, but everything good also happened. So I can tell you that at least the mother in me, yeah, I would not want to raise my child in an abusive relationship,
Mhm.
but I would protect my child and hope that that parent um, got help.
Mhm.
Because when you hurt a child's parent, you hurt that child. I
Mhm.
don't care how sick or what that parent did. And sometimes kids, because of their age and because they're kept away from their parent, it's very easy for them because they feel like they're being protected by the alienator, when that's not the case,
What
right?
a mess, what a mess.
That was my life. That was my
Oh.
life. And then I was my like, oh, so this is my life now. Okay. So it's it was very, 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 not easy to, I guess, reckon with, because this is real. This is human life. And I can't tell you how many parents I talk to that are crying. Like, I told my mom, I'm like, Mom, be glad you didn't fight for me in family court. Because she went into real estate and did very well. There was no way she would have been able to help me or be in the financial position if she fought the courts. She
Mhm.
would have lost everything. And you know what? That alienator, my stepmom would have loved that to happen. So
Mhm.
thank God that, I grew up and said, hey, you know what? I'm going to turn a book out of this. Because I didn't have a voice as a little kid, but I do as an adult.
Yeah. Well, but some parents get sucked into family court kicking and screaming, they don't even wanna be there, and they're forced into it because it's rigged, and they want one parent to pay child support, and then that's where they start destroying that, targeted parent.
Well, they're not putting their kids first. Selfish. It's free will.
Mhm.
I got divorced. I've been divorced twice now. The last divorce, I was married to Greg for over 21 years.
Mhm.
We didn't have children together, and we still both want the best for each other. It's
Mhm.
really sad. Even my ex-husband, same thing. It's free will. Um, you love your kids, you put them first.
Mhm.
And sometimes when you're not married to someone like that, like, I've never, like, both my ex-husbands have never complained about child support, spousal support, none of that. And that's all you hear. And by the way, anybody who's watching, yeah, I used my money for my divorce to help fund this project and my book.
Mhm.
So you can't just say that all women just take from men. No, I raised a son. Like, so there's so much, like, bias and
Oh, yes.
just inconsistent, just bad, really bad messages that I find just sad, because it's like, this isn't this isn't okay. Like, if you're bashing women, do you have a daughter? If
Mhm.
you're bashing men, do you have a son?
Mhm.
Because whether you have a son or your daughter, it's just like, I just see like a Ferris wheel or a merry-go-round. Just, it's
Mhm.
the same thing over and over, and it won't stop
Mhm.
unless you stop it yourself, unless the kid grows up and stops it or chooses one parent over the other. And that happens a lot. And sometimes that's estrangement.
Mhm. Yeah, it's very sad because as you brought up the division with the fathersrights.org And
Mhm.
that even just hearing that puts the fear into women, like, "Ah, they're ganging up on me already," you know? I don't know what it is
Right.
about that, but I always try to tell people that, for instance, okay, I was test driving a car the other day, but this car salesman, we were talking and he asked what I do, and really not too much, but I explained family court to him, and he said, Yeah, I've been there, and they're biased against all men." And I said, "Well, no, not really. They're coming after everybody." I said, "They're coming after everybody." I have women friends that are, you know, they're paying child support too. I think everybody knows my horrific story, but I try to educate that, you may have had a crazy judge that just came after you because you're a target. People have to realize
Mhm.
that it's not bias. Sometimes that judge has a psycho issue that maybe you remind him or her of something that happened in their past, and they're projecting it onto you now. And there is no we cannot have this division, or we're gonna have attorneys and judges sitting back laughing at parents because this is generating more income for
Yeah,
them.
exactly. They want the division, and here's what I've learned growing up in division, and like I'm not afraid of division. I see the word vision in division. Uh, I this is the thing. Uh, you can't. Nobody can divide you unless you give them permission.
Mhm,
Period. So that's why I don't fall for the. I mean, when we're talking parents. I'm not talking about abuse, domestic abuse, because the way I see it, it happens on both sides of the spectrum now.
mhm, mhm,
I mean, it's just men do it physical, women do it emotionally.
mm,
And here's the thing, whether it's physical pain or emotional pain, the body processes pain the same way.
mhm,
Meaning, we don't, even though, because that's why emotional pain just feels like it never goes away, right? It's just because we can't see those wounds heal. So there is no difference between emotional pain and physical pain.
mhm.
The body processes the same. That is a neurological fact. So, uh, it's very sad to see so many good parents, so many kids that when you hear alienated kids, I've seen them, I've heard them um, go off on their parents. And the anger is like their anger is them saying, I deserve more. I don't know what's going on. So they're screaming because it feels like you're being torn away from the good parent, the preferred parent. In reality, they didn't want any of it.
Mm,
Most kids, every kid that I've ever talked to, yeah, they're like, we freaking hate the drama. Ugh, like, oh no, here comes the
yeah.
holidays. Now I gotta go to mom's. Now I gotta dad's. And there's no safe space for these kids.
Mhm,
And it's, you know, uh, you have a very limited time when you're in parent mode.
mhm,
First 7 years, I think by 14, my parents had no control or influence over me. I was that pissed off. But I didn't know, like, I had the insight to hang out with all my friends that their families were intact.
mhm.
So, I had the insight to surround myself with people that were nothing like what I couldn't stand, but I didn't know what was happening.
But this alienation can happen even in an intact family as well.
Right.
Mm,
It does, except this is different because when you're intact, yes, you can be alienated. But when your parents are getting a divorce, this is so deliberate. It is deliberate.
mhm.
Meaning there's no way you can't read what I had to digest as a kid and not say it's deliberate. No, so it's a psychopath. I thought it
Mhm.
was a sociopath. I'm like, this is bad. This is bad. And it's sad that it's not much different than what's being written out there by stepmoms in groups.
Mhm.
And their biggest concern is that the, I'm going to say stepmoms because I don't see that many stepdads write this. It's the dads that are too afraid to discipline the child, or they are just not equipped. They don't know how.
Mhm.
And then you have the stepmom that the kids need this, and then they start judging the kids. They start judging their kids against their kids are going to be so effed up because this and that. To me, right there is red flag. Like, if I was a parent back in the day, if I saw my husband write anything bad about my child,
Mhm.
gone, gone.
Mhm.
Maybe you can get an apartment, but we're done.
Mhm.
There's no excuse for that. So when kids see this, and this happens, this is why kids don't speak up about step parent abuse or what's going on, is because they see that other parent not doing anything. And when a parent doesn't do anything,
Mhm.
you're only teaching your kid this is what to expect. This is this is the best way you're going to be treated.
And that speaks so poorly of that parent to allow the step parent to behave in this manner because maybe that parent doesn't wanna be alone. Oh, if they,
Thank you.
make them toe the line,
Attachment.
yeah, they're gonna
Yep.
leave. And then I got these kids I gotta deal with. Who's gonna babysit these kids? She's gotta babysit these kids because 'cause I've gotta go here and there to work or whatever. And then, you know, uh, there was a movie on Netflix called 1822 written by Stephen King, and
Mm,
it dealt with parental alienation and not in a good way. I won't go into it, but I watched it, and it was just like how these people behave, but it was within if I can speak English, in an intact family.
yeah.
But
Oh yeah.
the father wanted the mother gone, and I won't ruin the plot for anyone, but
Yeah. Yeah.
what and these step-parents and I like you said, I know some good ones, I know a lot of good ones, I'm close to a good one, and but the ones that insert themselves in the co-parent relationship that had been going smoothly and causes destruction and adversity and knows the court system very well, and then inserts themselves in the relationship.
Maternal deprivation. She stole my mom
Mhm,
and my dad. Even though my dad came and brought me the proof, he didn't know. They did not know. Both my parents came here from two separate countries, so that what I could be, they came here legally, so what I could be illegally alienated. Are you kidding? I'm
mhm.
like, you cannot. First of all, I don't think you could fully alienate a Latina because there's too many of us.
Yeah,
Thank God.
yeah,
But no, it really did happen. And unfortunately, the truth is this is preventable. And parents, you know, parents that hate, and this is just so hard because when you're a parent and you say you hate your ex-spouse, and then you hear that saying, oh, when you love your kids, but if you don't let your kid love that other parent, then that kid just doesn't love part of themselves. Well, parent, you're being a hypocrite because you hate my mom or my dad, then you hate part of me. So
mhm,
all these step parents that say, oh, high conflict bio mom, or oh, I hate the mom. I can still love a child but hate their mom. Yeah, really? Because I'm going to go out on a mic on New York in Times Square and ask every parent, hey, would you drop your kid off somebody that hates your kid? No. Only in parental alienation and family court do parents feel like have they can't parent. They are so stricken from being human. You're
mhm,
stricken from being human. You can't even defend your own kid. Are you kidding me? What kind of world are we living in where parents cannot protect their kids? They want to erase everything about parents. It's okay to erase a mom. Oh, no, I grew up without a mom. It's okay. Oh, dads, yeah, I didn't have a dad. It's becoming so saturated. It's nothing. It's not normal. It's
mhm.
not. And when you don't have that foundation, you seek the rest of your life for it. And I think an 8-year-old, that would be horrible. It's horrible. It happened to me.
Mhm.
So yeah, I, it's something, family court has to do something, because if they don't, they need to be dismantled. They need to put jury trials in there, or parents, all parents. I'm pretty confident that uh, I'm pretty confident that going forward, the next generation of kids and parents are going to understand. Stay the hell away from family court.
Oh, yeah, most definitely. Um, I won't keep you too long, but I was gonna
Okay.
ask you this, okay?
Uh-huh.
Sometimes you get these rogue caseworkers
Uh-huh.
who probably have connections to certain people that work in courthouses. That's why they end up at your door because they're married to someone who works in the courthouse, okay?
Uh-huh.
So, then you unwittingly let this caseworker in who starts screaming at you. Do you hate your ex more than you love your kids? And she's screaming, well, at me at a rapid pace. And it's like,
Uh-huh.
I couldn't process, like, "What the F are you saying?"
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Like, I couldn't, like, "What do you mean?" I mean, I never had a problem with him before until he married her, but now we're having problems. I don't hate the guy. Um, in fact,
You
he
hate that he's allowing it to happen.
right? But
That's a good thing to, yeah, you don't like it.
yeah, I'm so, this is where I guess flying monkeys come in. And I think
Uh,
I'd like to do another podcast with you where we can talk about how flying monkeys insert themselves with the help of these people to make the situation far worse than it already is.
Yeah, you definitely. Yeah, there's yeah, I always say not my was it not my monkeys, not my business,
Right. Yeah.
right? It's
Yep.
yeah, when people get very I would say, I don't know, emotional or passionate, and they start saying exactly what you said, don't, how can you, what was it? How can you hate
Y
your kids more than you love your what?
oh,
Was that?
yeah, because it's like I was telling my psychologist this that she was yelling at me, "Do you hate your ex more than you love your kids?" And she said, "What kind of a question is that?" And I said, "I couldn't process." I mean, like, I was just so taken aback that I was getting screamed at. I mean, I had been a
Yeah,
nurse for
got it.
23 years, and believe me, I've lived with emotional abuse for well over 10 years. So I'm used to public abuse, emotional abuse. I'm used to
Yeah.
being,
Yeah.
but when you're hearing another female scream at you like that, I mean, I've never been treated so bad, not even by a patient or another nurse like that.
Yeah. Yeah, well, yeah, your body freezes. You're like, whoa, something's going on. So sometimes we'll go into like a fawn mode, like, am I really hearing this? And
Yes.
yeah, yeah. And so yeah, the answer is no. I don't want anything bad to happen to my ex. I'm very grateful that we have kids together. What I don't like is when people interfere in a sacred relationship. That's what I have a problem with. And when you can, hit them with the facts, it's funny to watch them like scatter.
Oh,
Like they
yeah.
don't. Yeah, I get it, but it's kind of funny. It's like, watch me take this down. Like, give me 2 seconds, and it's
Yeah.
like, boom, and they're gone. And I'm like, I don't know. I was alienated. I'm severely alienated, and now I'm using all these tools to help educate and, hopefully, get more kids to understand that what's going on for them. And then adult kids like, oh shoot, that makes sense, because you'll you don't really get to live your life free, because the past will continue to it's kind of like how you guys are in court, right? It's like there's so much uncertainty and you're waiting, and it's the same thing kind of for the kid, because it's just there, and you can't, you can ignore it. But that's why people drink, that's why they
Mhm.
do what they it's a natural way to
Mhm.
shut down that pain that
Mhm.
we can't explain. And that's why it's so important that it's kids understand that when parents get divorced, sometimes parents have to understand, hey, you wanting a divorce doesn't mean that your kid wants to be with you 50-50. Everything changes forever for the
Mhm.
kids. forever.
Mhm.
So the way that we look at divorce should be different too, because parents should just do what's best for their kids. And the fighting is the worst thing that could be done.
Mhm. Exactly.
Just sucks that what are you going to do? They really have you guys. It's like they have your heart prisoned, right? It's like if your heart is prison and you have no rights. You
Right.
can't you can't even post on social media. But you guys are adults and you can't post on social media. Wait, you guys are adults and you can't. Are you kidding me? So, and
Yeah.
what's really sad is a lot of the parents that are crying alienation, they're the alienators. They're the ones that are uh, using it as a way to benefit their narrative.
Mhm.
They're the alienators because the parents that are fighting it, you don't, you only fight that because it's a lie.
Right. Right.
So I see it like in my sleep. I can wake up and go, yep, that's an alienator. Like I could
Yeah.
tell by even by like, ooh, if I get a little triggered, I'm like, ooh, that's a really bad alienator right there. Yeah.
Well, if
And that, yeah.
and if it's any consolation to anyone, I was on the witness stand telling the truth because that's what you're supposed to do when you raise your right hand to what? There's no Bible in there, right? But
Right.
I was telling the truth, and the judge yelled at me, "You are appalling on the stand." Well, I was gonna I was gonna say something snotty like, "Well, you want the truth, don't you?" You know?
Yeah, I just like I just want that part of the court reporter thing
Yeah,
and framed it because
yeah, real
it's okay to be you. I know
oh,
and it's the worst thing to do is silence a survivor in the court system and oh and don't have any emotion. Oh yeah, and give us all your money.
oh,
And if you
yeah.
say something, you're gonna go to jail.
Oh,
And
yeah.
you're like, I'm a parent. Like, are you kidding me? It is this is why the other half of the country needs to know that this is happening and every every child that is hurt that child that it hurts society.
Yes. Yes. Most definitely. Well, I wanna have you back on so we can talk some more.
Definitely. Yeah. Yeah,
Um, so
definitely.
and then the name of your book, again,
It's
is,
alienated when
Alienated.
parents won't. Mhm.
Oh, I'm
alienated
sorry.
when alienated when parents won't parent.
I can't wait for that to come out. I can't wait to get a copy. And how
Yeah,
about
it's a hard read.
oh, well, hey,
Yeah,
you know what? Y
it's a hard topic, I know.
well, so is an anatomy book. I've been a nurse. That's a hard read, you know
Okay,
what I'm saying?
nurses
It's
are my favorite. I wanted
yeah,
to be a nurse. Yeah,
yeah.
I was a flight attendant. Yeah, otherwise I would have been a nurse.
See,
Yes.
so, and how can people reach you if they have any questions?
Uh, find me on Facebook, Lisa Goodpaster, Instagram, Lisa.Goodpaster, uh, the stephoodproject.org, and TikTok.
Gotcha. Okay, hey, don't jump off. Slam
Okay.
Gavel's a podcast to help the public understand what really goes on in these family courtrooms that in turn perpetuate parental alienation. I am your host, Marianne Petrie, author of Dismantling Family Court Corruption, Why Taking the Kids Was Not Enough, and Cry Out for Justice, Poems of Truth. Please join us again here with Lisa Goodpaster in the future and other exciting guests. Thank you so much, Lisa. Thank you.
Thank you.